Welcome back. Max Cisneros here. I wanted to make a video talking about Selfnificant, which is a blog I started a few years ago. And the idea behind this blog was the significance of the self, significance of myself, of yourself, of ourselves. And the idea behind it was basically I was in a really bad place. Um, Found out I was HIV positive at the time and full of self hate, self pity, making self destructive choices in self destructive relationships. And, and out of that, I wanted to be better, but I didn't know how. I didn't exist in that scenario. It was all about my relationship to the men, relationship to the drug, relationship. I was just involved in an addiction that was a soup of destruction. And I decided that I was going to choose another addiction to knock this one out. And I chose to be addicted to myself, connecting to my spiritual nature. I decided to replace that addiction, the self destructive addictions, with an addiction to Christ, an addiction to my spirituality. Now, that's me. When we cope, we look for things that help us in that moment. And a lot of the time, we try to avoid suffering. I mean, let me use I statements here. A lot of the time, I try to avoid suffering, and in that avoidance, I create more for me. So I chose an addiction to Christ, an addiction to spirituality, to connection, to knock out the crystal meth, to knock out the alcohol, the pot, the destructive relationships. That's what I chose, and it worked for me. And out of that came Selfnificant. Out of that came the idea to connect with yourself, find significance in you, help yourself so you can help others. Cliche and corny, I know, powerful, powerful. And so that's what Selfnificant is. And it's a blog that I started a few years ago in that time. Before that happened, and it continues. I haven't touched it much, but I want to restart it tonight. I want you to know that, the same way I restarted Mad Max again, I want you to know that this is an ongoing thing. As far as the pledge that I made to myself about letting go of eating meat, letting go of drinking, and letting go and exercising every other day, I want you to know what's happening there. I ate one piece of meat. There was no thought process. There was no thought process between on New Year's Day in the middle of cleaning up. There was no thought process when I saw that piece of meat on the plate. It was pork. Didn't even matter. And it went from the plate to my mouth. There was no thought process there. This is what amazes me. Because if I had thought about it, I wouldn't have done it. But we're just so fucking conditioned. So goddamned programmed to think it normal, to think it okay. And I'm not talking about eating meat. I'm talking about to think it all right to make an agreement with yourself and then break it without thinking. That was the last piece of meat I ate. New Year's Day. And I've been strong since. Drinking, same deal. I have not had a drop of alcohol or beer, and that's significant in itself because I was drinking every day for the most part of last year. So I haven't been drinking. Exercise, I've fallen short. I ain't gonna lie, and I want to talk about coping because when you choose your addiction, you have to be aware of your expectations. You have to be aware of what it is you can do. I know I have to be aware of what it is I'm capable of, and more importantly, what I'm not capable of, because that's what ends up making you feel useless. What ends up making me feel useless. So we talked about Selfnificant, and to me, Selfnificant is going to be the spiritual badass. For me, what I want Selfnificant to be is we get so tied down. I get so tied down and limited by my own expectations that I end up doing nothing. And this is how I cope. There's a quote. And using somebody else's words is always so much better and easier, I tell you. There's a quote by E. E. Hale. I don't even know who that is. I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And I will not let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do. The reason that's powerful to me is because no matter what the scenario, however small the dilemma is, I want to go to bed right now. I'm really tired. I need to clean this apartment. I wanted to make this video. I want to watch the Golden Globes. All these expectations, and then I do nothing. So what I said, all right, I can't do it all. I can't do it all. But I can do one of those things. I decided not to clean the apartment. I decided not to go to bed early. And I decided not to watch the Golden Globes live. I decided to do this video. Because just because I can't do everything doesn't mean I can't do one thing. And I'm doing that one thing. Manage my own expectations. And that's how I cope. Well, there's many ways how I cope, but that's one of them. And that's what I wanted to talk about. I think that's good for now. It's a long enough video, and I'm tired. Thank you for joining me. Remember, breathe in peace. Exhale love. It fucking helps. Have a good night.